Hey everyone, Matt from Soundrolling.com, and I'm here with Alejandro Jaramillo from Amniotica. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank God. Hello. Hello, Alejandro.
How are you?
I'm very well. Just before we get started, just because we're live, there is a box for people to kind of comment and kind of ask questions and stuff as we go along. So that'll be really cool. And there is a slight delay in the video. This is just so we can keep everything moving along, hopefully. And that's pretty much it. So we'll just kind of dive straight in with all about your company, Amniotica. And you're doing everything there, from kind of mixing, sound design, Foley, ADR, even production sound. You're really catering to the whole process. So just tell me a bit about that.
Yeah. Well, initially I was interested in making like this lab of sound design and synthesis production where we could, create sounds from nothing and record sounds to make new sounds. But it just, I started it as a small project. It just, each time became bigger and well, I decided to gather some really talented people, and each person centers around a specific area of sound and production. So we've been developing like methods, and we try to work on every aspect of sound. Every time I talk about Vodka, I mentioned that we have a person who is capable of doing this part of the sound process, and it's worked out very well that way, because each person like studies and specializes and has like all the information around that part of the process specifically. So it's been really cool. I was saying that every time I talk about Amniotica, I talk about that we can do anything that sounds, really, if it's recording or if it's post-processing or production, mixing, creating sounds or nothing, recreating sounds, anything basically in the sound chain that can be in a film or in a TV spot or whatever. So it's been a process that we've been developing over the year, and I think in this point we can do anything. And if it's not, if we haven't created it, worked on it, we try to investigate and give the best of us to develop projects. Sometimes some clients want these really weird things like happenings and art installation sound and stuff like that. So it's always a learning process. That's really the beauty of this.
I think it's really interesting, just being able to go, because you're doing a similar thing to what I'm doing, in terms of really wanting to see see the advantages, basically, of seeing a project all the way through, and knowing that it was recorded properly, and then knowing kind of how you're going to deal with the post, and essentially just saving so much time, kind of so much money, usually just based on the preparation that you already have for post-production. Where do you kind of fit in? Are you like out on recording and then you're taking it to the studio? Like, what's your main principal role at Amniotica?
My main principal role as Alejandro is I'm the sound designer and mixer. I like to call it like the final stage of everything. And sorry, what you mentioned is really important, because that's the only way that you can have control over what you're working on. So if you have knowledge of every point or every stage in the sound chain, you can try to develop, it's like to create a better project. Sometimes we do all process from production sound, pre-production sound, production sound, to post-production and final mix. If we have control over every stage, that's really cool. But if we don't, we try to have a very strong communication with the people who are involved in the other, parts of the process. So, for example, if we are only going through the post-production, we have some rules that we can, turn on the other people who are doing the other process, so that our process is more efficient and their process is more efficient. For example, if we're doing production sound, we will all ask for, room tones, well tracks. Sometimes if we feel need like impulse responses, stuff like to do reverb convolution afterwards, whatever. So that, facilitate, it makes it easier for our work and their work. So everything is, in one package. And the only way you're going to work well with the, the information that another team gives you is knowing what you're going to ask for, and knowing what are the problems and the possible solutions you can have when it comes to you, when the material comes to you. So being aware of, all those parts that I'm talking about, I think it simplifies everything, make it faster. And if they deliver good material to you, your process will be much faster, efficient, and you can deliver a final mix better. So yeah, for us, it's really important knowing what the other people are doing and how they are doing it, and how they are going to deliver it to us to make the best out of it.
It's really interesting, just picking up on the point of impulse responses. What situations do you find they're kind of most useful in, or would be kind of required in a kind of production scenario, as opposed to just going back and getting them in post-production?
When it's very specific locations, especially when it's small locations, like small room tones, bedrooms, kitchens, that kind of stuff. What I felt over the projects that we've worked on is bigger spaces are more easily to be virtually done. But smaller spaces, I feel when you record the response and you do it your own way with the original location, everything seems to like glue better. And if you use any virtual simulation or whatever, I feel it never comes like as close as the real location impulse response would give you. So if we have control over that, we try to do it. If we don't, we at least take pictures of the place, so we can have a better look of how it looks, what type of walls and materials they are, dimensions and sizes and stuff like that. If it's like a church or something, you can just put on the plugin and you can put on the church impulse response, and it'll be pretty accurate. But I feel in small spaces like cars, bathrooms, kitchens, bedrooms, living rooms, that kind of stuff, I prefer to record. I think it sounds better if we record the actual location. Sometimes what we've done is we just go afterward, and with the photograph you look for because in production everything's so fast and people are just running around and gathering stuff and talking, especially. So asking for 2 minutes or 3 minutes of silence in a production is really complicated. If you just take a photograph and afterwards look for a similar location and record the IR, it's I think it's easy for your work. It's easy just to put the file inside your reverb plugin instead of searching for minutes, hours, or even days trying to find reverb you need.
And in terms of just going about how to record the right impulse response, I mean, for me, I've always kind of used the clapper at the end of room tone. So try to get the just a general room tone, and then just get someone to and just left it at that. But is there a specific place that's good? Should I be going, if we've got like multiple actors talking in a bedroom, for instance, should I just do the middle of the bedroom? Does it really matter? Are there any kind of best practices for recording a good impulse response?
What I do, or what we do, is usually take the point where one of the actors is. If you have a bedroom with two actors, what I usually do is just, stand at the point where one actor is, and then I do what you said, in the middle of the room. Uh, Almost always, it's basically the same. What I try to avoid is corners, because corners, you have so many early reflections and stuff, and it makes it a bit like muddy. But yes, if the person is talking to another person in a bed, and maybe the bed is like in the middle of the room, I'll try to get the perspective of one of the two, and that always works. And I usually do also the middle of the room. Then I just just hearing A and B, I try to find what's the best sounding place. That's what I do usually.
And is there any kind of post work on the reverb as well? Like, do you ever EQ the reverb? Are you ever doing anything else to? So say you've got an impulse response from the center of the room, but they're actually right in the corner of the room. Are you doing anything to the reverb there, or are you just kind of dialing it up and down, and not treating the reverb, but just treating the dialogue?
Yeah, I don't usually treat the reverb. I think sometimes I do, because you find that the place doesn't sound really nice. So basically, when it doesn't sound nice, I just go for the option of looking for a reverb that works. Sometimes, I'm not going to say it works all the times, but sometimes the pulse response just doesn't work. Maybe because in the rush, it wasn't recorded properly, or because the room for itself just doesn't sound nice, or because it sounds boxy, or because it has a lot of modes, or because it has a lot of reflections. Sometimes you get impressed by places you really wouldn't think that has a really long reverb, but it does, because maybe you're only shooting part of the room, but the sound just moves on. But yeah, when that happens, I don't try to like to manipulate the IR. I just put on another plugin with another reverb and start like sound, like to search for a cool sound, a sound that works and makes the most important thing for me is that the dialogue is clear. So I just search for a room tone maybe, and maybe add a little bit of reverb. But if it doesn't work, if I record the IR and it doesn't work, just take it off. I prefer to go with something that's a little bit cleaner.
And a tip that I've kind of tried to get some directors to do is just kind of wait a couple of seconds before they say action, just to try and get the most accurate room tone to the take that we're actually doing, as well, especially if it's of course loud and not very useful in terms of the quality of the sound. But in terms of room tone, how much room tone would you kind of advise, or how much do you kind of do on production?
In time?
Yeah.
Time-wise?
Yeah.
We usually do about 2 minutes. That's like the rule we found that we can use for it not sounding loopy. Yeah. Sometimes we have big scenes, and you have to repeat the room tone or the ambience one time or 2 times, and sometimes you don't even listen to maybe a drop or like wood sounds or stuff. But after you listen for a while, you start hearing loops. We try to, and in 2 minutes, usually we can extend it a bit and cover the whole scene. Especially in soaps, do here in Colombia a lot of soap operas and TV series and stuff. And edition here is, you know, like really fast. So we found out with 2 minutes, it's enough. Even if you buy like library ambient sound and stuff like that, almost every library has like maximum 1 minute and a half, 2 minute like loops of the sound. So we found that that's enough.
And what kind of times are you trying to grab this? So say you've done is the 2 minutes the kind of total out of, say, the lots of different shots, and like, oh, 30 seconds here because we shot part of the scene on this day and 30 seconds here? Or are you trying to get it all in one go, say just after lunch or before lunch or something?
Yeah, we wanted to get it in just one take. But obviously, it depends on the scene and, you know, the place, because maybe it's the same location, but it's a different perspective. For example, if you're in a parking lot, we did a short film in a parking lot like 5 years ago or something. It's called Rito, and it's a game between the surveillance camera of the parking lot and this girl who's like messing around with this camera's head. The camera isn't a person, it's just a camera. So she's always moving around the parking lot, but sometimes she gets close to the elevators, and in another moment she's closer like to this machines we had there. Then we were looking this place where there was this other like tubes that worked for the hot water in the apartments. So, for example, all the film is on location, but we have like different places. So we would record different room tones of the different moments in where she's, you know, standing in the parking lot. But we had like 2 or 3 layers of the parking lot itself. So for example, in that film, we had to, you know, like record a lot of ambience and room tones from different parts, from under the bridges, from when cars came in, if you were under or if you were above, if you were standing just in front of the car who's entering. It was a nice project because, you know, it's just one place, and we had the time and the facility and there was no dialogue in the short film. So basically we were all recording sounds, and it turned out really cool.
And were you doing all the post-production on that film? Were you doing all the post-production on that film as well as the production?
Yeah, we did the production and post-production.
And did you find that helped you in terms of negotiating things on set, in terms of what you needed from a director?
Yeah, of course. There was no dialogue, so even the moving of machines and stuff and location helped, you know, like to make this big picture of machines and things moving around, and the parking lot, or the thing we had in the camera, maybe him provoking everything. So it was really nice. We were always telling people to like move down, walk. The only rule was no talking, but all those elements worked a lot, and the director was really comfortable with it because he was just this thing, and we were doing ours. I think we had like 6 microphones at the same time in different, you know, parts of the parking lot, and we just had them rolling all the time. And each time they ran out of batteries, we would just change it and put it in. And some, you know, we're actually thinking about releasing a library with these sounds because they're weird. They sound weird, and they work for those, you know, sound design, ambience, maybe foley, things that you don't know which category it was in. So it was really cool. It was really cool.
Nice. And what microphones were you using? Or were they just kind of mics plugged into external recorders like a Zoom or something?
No, they were actually just recorders put on a little tripod. We have, and I think we had a Tascam, we had 2 Zooms, And I think we had a MacBook Pro with stereo mic. We basically just, got everything from the studio we weren't using, which were the handheld recorders, and just, put them in and record it. But yeah, we didn't. It was the film was intended to be mixed in stereo, so we just recorded stereo sources and stuff. We do have a 5.1 microphone, but I think we didn't own it at the time, and since the movie was going for stereo, so I think we wouldn't have used it anyway.
With the 5.1 microphone, what kind of situations are you using those in? Are they just ambient, or are you kind of, because I know you also do like binaural recording as well.
Yeah.
Is it for just how are you utilizing the 5.1 mic?
We have a project that's called Sound Maps here in Amniotica. And basically what we're doing is recording Colombian ambiences. So we use it basically for that. We have, right now, we're complete 5, I don't know how to call it, like programs or CDs or whatever. We're a 5th one, and when we finish the 5th one, which we're finishing right now, we are going to release those 5, and we're going to record another 5, and we're going to try to release like 5s every time we have 5. So we've done, there's this really cool place here called Monserrate. Monserrate is like this temple in the highest part of Bogota. You could see all the sea. We were recording up there with the microphone, so we recorded ambience. We have this volume called shopping malls. So
Yep.
we recorded 3 shopping malls here, and so we record everything: my bathrooms, halls, the electric stairs, inside some shops, people talking, people walking around. We did that one. That was the 2nd one. The 3rd one was soccer stands. We did this documentary about Colombia. The Colombian soccer team hadn't gone to a world championship a long time ago, so it's really important here to have gone to the last one. So they did a documentary of the work the soccer team did to go there. So we were making music and sound design on this project. So just, one day went and recorded soccer balls, keepers, gloves. That was volume 3. The volume 4 is nature sounds. We were in a river, and there's a lot of forest here near the studio, so we also went there. And the 5th one was this, like the main highway that we have here in Bogota, and we recorded it from downtown to almost where it finishes, recording each 10 blocks, if I'm not incorrect. So those are the 5 volumes we have. Basically, we bought the microphone for that. So all those ambient sounds of Colombia, we're going to release them, and they are all recorded in stereo, in binaural 3D, and in 5.1.
And that's all with the same mic?
It's all with the same mic.
Awesome. What's the model? What's the model and make of the mic? Is it DPA or?
No, it's a sound. Let me get this. Let me check, because I have it in the the warehouse. But it's let me check here on the internet. It's not a DPA. It's it actually records in AB format, so you have to do this conversion afterwards.
Right. Okay.
I'll just check in a minute. I'll do the,
That's yeah, that's okay. We can check after, and I'll post a link up. In terms of when you're going around and trying to record something like a shopping mall or even a highway, I suppose for most people it's trying to think of the best place. How do you go from a place of, well, I want it to sound kind of like this, and I think I'll get that if I stand here type of thing, or are you just kind of wandering around until something catches your ears and then recording just there and then?
No, basically we had like this map thing that we wrote down, and we had to record in different perspectives, because obviously the way you put the microphone will affect the way you record the sound. So we had it like pointing. First of all, we had it like pointing toward the cars, so you could like feel the car pass beside you. We put the microphone facing, like toward the highway. You could feel the car from left to right, and the same on the other side, passing from right to left. And then we pointed on the other side, like when the cars came from behind, and you could feel the car passing by and driving away. So we also took pictures of that. We have everything documented, and we also have like this. It's in a very simple way. We also put two Zoom, I think it was H4N, if I'm not wrong.
Yep.
And we put one facing on one side and the other facing on the other. This in case that we needed like to compare things, we used something for that. We had like 2 or 3 sources recorded, and we had a map. So we had this specific time to be there. Especially because you can't be, I think here and in any city you can't be exposed to recording a lot of time alone in the middle of a highway. It's dangerous, and we had a lot of gear. We had to be fast, so we just had like this plan with the maps. Put the microphone here, record 3 or 5 minutes. Put the microphone face this way, record another 3 or 5 minutes. So each stop was 15 minutes, and then just went to the other. Downtown is a bit dangerous. So when we were in downtown, we obviously had to record faster than if we were, uptown, which is a bit more secure. But basically here, if you're in the middle of downtown, 3 people show up and take all your gear. So we have to be very, very, very good with that. So yeah, that was the idea. We had the map. We had it was a time watch, record, sync. Like the sync point, record, and just get in the move like the jam box. That's the way we did. Afterwards, we split here in the studio, and sounded really cool, and the H4N material also helped us for another stereo perspective, and we're just going to throw that into the libraries, and I think there's cool material there, because they especially when you do what happens here is that there aren't a lot of Colombian libraries. So when you work, especially on TV series and stuff like that, you have 2 choices, or go out and record what you need, which budget-wise is not always the best option. The other option is to use the libraries you've already bought, and you don't have Colombian sounders. So you end up sometimes using like pieces of the country. And, you can sometimes hear the dialogue and stuff. So that's where the idea really came from. So not only using it for us, but also, giving it to our friends and other studios that work in sound production here, and so they can use it also. It's a cool project.
And I suppose it helps you get around and kind of, I guess, get to know places as well, like certain areas. I know when I've kind of recorded stuff in London, it's quite nice sometimes, because usually I'm rushing around like everyone else, just trying to get from A to B as fast as possible. But sometimes it's nice just to like sit outside of Big Ben or something and just wait for it to chime, and it's just kind of, it's a bit zen, even though you're kind of even with highway traffic, it's a bit like the sea with all the kind of white noise kind of going by. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. And Utica, located in, it's like a country house. It's not really in Bogota. It's like a 20 minutes drive from Bogota. It's like this half point where you can also, you're from Bogota, going from Bogota to here, there's this point called from La Cara, and you could see Bogota from north to south. So we got a lot of, forest here. There's these caverns we want to visit and record. We have a river here, like 100 meters down from the house. We have a lot of stuff you want to record, and so last time we recorded in the town of La Calera, which is the town I'm talking about, and it was really nice. Almost every town here in Colombia has this middle park. It's like Central Park. In the Central Park, you always find the same things, which is the mayor's office, the church, and more specific and important things around the town. So we were there and we recorded some really cool ambience, and we recorded cows, and we recorded horses, like that. And we're always having fun with it. It's it's like 5-minute drive, and we always find really cool sounds over there.
And with obviously recording like multiple angles, multiple effects, you've obviously got to kind of note down, kind of do sound reports, I guess, so you can know, like, okay, in this track we did it this way round. Are you adding any extra detail there, or are you kind of reviewing it in the studio? I'm just interested to know about the kind of reporting process.
We have this sound report format. One is basically for sounds when we're recording dialogue, and the other one is for when we're recording sound effects and ambiences. Basically, I don't remember exactly what we have in the sound report, but basically it's just time code, observations, for example, in outlines. I think that's basically it. The location, obviously, and sometimes we just put down the number of the photograph, so we can later review how it looked like. For example, when we recorded the avenue thing, we had each photograph marked with the corresponding audio file on the recorders. So that was very, very, very important to do the post-production process, because it was easier when you heard something and you were seeing the photograph. You could completely imagine, like being there, and you could make some observations, like I'm in the corner, or I'm next to a police station, or I'm, whatever. It was really cool, because it sounded like an ambulance or something. You just took the photograph and you were like, oh, there was a hospital right in front of us. So those kind of things are really important, because it also helps you with the metadata afterwards and stuff like that. But yeah, that's basically what we have done. We try to be very meticulous, and always like take a person with us who is responsible of down all that information, which we call the script person, which would be the same script person in a film scenario, and he's always writing down whatever. There was a car crash, an airplane, or whatever. It really helps us afterwards in the process. Sometimes just some files completely don't work because something happens, whatever. So we just write it down, and we know we have to take that part of the project out. But basically, we have there, like all the information we need for post-production afterwards. Because maybe if I record it, I don't necessarily am the person who is going to edit it. So if it's much clearer, it's way better because the other person understands better. And if he didn't go to record, he could understand better what we has to do and what the material has really.
And I suppose that's a knock-on effect to then the sound design process, because if you're taking pictures of where things are, you can essentially make even a visual kind of mood board of what this place is kind of becoming in terms of the sound design behind the environment.
Yeah, completely. Completely. We even either things sometimes, check sizes of spaces and stuff. Did this short film also some ago, and it was the only location was a bathroom. So we also did a map. We did a map and we recorded the IR the way I told you. Did that, and it was really cool because I had like this map and I visually saw everything in my Pro Tools session as panning points. So really seeing what I was working with helped a lot in the post-production process. Like you can see that far part of the room is like my far, like left panning, and that part of the room is far right panning, and some place in the middle would be like this kind of percentage, and it helps a lot. Visually, it helps a lot because you can like put in space easier sound effects, dialogue and stuff, and you can have like a complete picture of from where to go, from where to where the happens. So you're more accurate of pointing and putting sounds that repeat themselves exactly the same place.
Yeah, because it can be really hard trying to, especially if if it's quite a long scene, let alone a whole film in kind of one area, just kind of pinpointing, okay, the camera's looking over here now, but they might have, for instance, just cheated it, and they might have shot like half the location with the actual bath in one place, and then it might be a studio with a fake wall in another place, or so getting your head around kind of where to place things is it's it's a really useful trick actually.
We do it a lot. It's cool.
With do you find you're always delivering in 5.1 now? Is it your common mixes are like 5.1 stereo, and do you do any like just M&E tracks for like translation or translation of dialogue and stuff?
Yeah, to be sincere, we don't do a lot of 5.1 mix for Colombian projects. Most of the projects in 5.1 we deliver for international clients. And TV here, like digital TV here is only like appearing, so we don't have to put 5.1 deliveries for TV yet. But we do for international clients, which will eventually go out to festivals. They always have 5.1 mix. But almost always, and work we do for TV and TV spots and documentaries, and we almost all do in stereo. Always the channel asks for different kind of deliveries they need. So they always ask for the M&E, complete mix, only music, only dialogue in mono, Foley, what's called, like effects, which is Foley, sound design, ambience in one track, and I think and a complete stereo mix with the levels they ask for and everything. basically because of that, which when sometimes they are going to, you know, like translate the move or the soap or whatever. So uh, everything should sound, ask for the full folly. They call it here the full folly.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
fully filled, I think is what we call it over here.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Here it's called the full folly, and the full folly is basically if you take off the dialogue channel or the product sound channel, you should hear absolutely everything except for the dialogue. Sometimes their intention is not to translate the products. So they just ask for the normal sonorization, as they call it here. It's just the basics, you know. Sit up and down, you know, palms and hits on cloth and people, you know, maybe if you have, it's like the essential, you know, doors, cars, things like that you have to accentuate. But if you will take the dialogue off, obviously you feel it's not complete. But with the production sound on, you can feel the overall picture of everything. But yeah, that's like the two scenarios. So if you're going to translate, you have to do the full. That means everything has to sound. Uh, Key change, cloth, steps, everything. And the other scenario is just like the basic where you have to like basically hard effects and things that are completely obvious, like kind of you know, like
Like a
hats
car.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the way we do it. It's a very fast-paced thing, so we have to work really fast. We have a 6-7 per people team. We just finished 3 soaps, and basically we had to deliver one episode a day.
Wow.
So it was really, really, really hard work. We started working at 8 in the morning and finished like at 8 in the night. I do everything. It was like 48 minutes of footsteps, cloth, foley. Okay, we divided it in footsteps. Another person did cloth, clothes and everything, jackets. Another person did what was sound design and hard effects. That's like weapons and cars and doors, cell phones, you know, electronics, things like that. Another person did ambience and dialogue correction, editing. And then in the channel, you know, which is the last part, they mixed everything. So basically you had to run, you know. We had like already these methods, especially for footsteps and things like that, to pace everything up, but it was a lot of work. The first 10 or 15 episodes, it was a nightmare because, you know, we had to work like really late in the night. But afterwards, you just like get used to it, and we delivered it. I think we did 70 episodes for each soap, and that took about 4 months of work.
That is, yeah, that is just crazy. I know people work long hours and stuff, but yeah, to be able to churn out. But I suppose that's a kind of testament and compliment to the kind of systems that you've already put in place. And I guess working in a team, the same team specifically, one big advantage is, I guess, not only do you kind of know each other, but because you have that certain protocol, you must save so much time.
Yeah, we do, and we were always like searching for uh, faster and better ways of doing stuff. So I know there are some methods, well-known methods of doing footsteps, for example, for you know, mapping everything to a MIDI controller and having contact with some samples and stuff. But we just found out that it didn't sound natural. So we tried to search for other methods that were equally efficient time wise, but that maybe sounded a bit better. So we tried to develop that. And that, about the first thing I said, we try that only one person does that, so he does it really well. And that's the way, that's how we're working. But eventually, after 15 or 20 episodes, you just find you have the same characters, you have the same actors. They're usually wearing the same shoes. So when you have like the big package already done, everything just becomes, mechanic, and you even have a little bit of more time to propose
Sleep.
a little bit more,
Yeah, and to sleep, I bet.
Yeah, and to sleep, obviously. But yeah, we have a great team. We love what we do, which is the most important thing. The only rule I have here for accepting people when we're going to work with us is to have a good time out of what they do. So we're always working and laughing, and it's a great team to work with. Everything has turned out really cool, and yeah, these kind of projects take a lot of your time in the like the initial stage, but afterwards you just feel completely comfortable with it, and you do it a lot easier. The problem is when you receive a new project and it's completely new. And for example, we did like this soap also like 2 years ago, and it was the same thing, but it was about this boxer. So that was really hard to do, because each episode was like this guy fighting with somebody, and usually those fights took a lot of time to do. But yeah, then we find another project which is like this TV series, really simple dialogue, and they're always in the living room talking, and not much happens. And then you find you can do it really fast. Like when they tell us we have this short film, we have the deadline of 8 days. Can you do it? We're like, yeah, we can do it. Of course, we do 48 minutes in one day. We can do 12 minutes in a week. It's like it's gonna turn out great. So yeah, we learn a lot. We learn shortcuts. We manage to work on Pro Tools really fast, and it really teaches you a lot. Some people would say like, no way, I won't do it. But we have the philosophy of, let's do it, take the best out of it, deliver the best we can, and learn something from it. And we always learn something from projects like that.
I just want to kind of touch on, I guess, the kind of journey you've gone on to, because you were in New York at one point, and now you're back in Colombia. Could you just talk about kind of where you kind of got started, and how you kind of how you kind of set everything up?
Yeah, I was born here in Colombia. I lived in the U.S., especially in New York and in Miami, but I was really small. I traveled with my parents because my dad especially he's a lawyer, but he's always been involved in radio stuff. So
Okay.
he had his own radio station. When he went to the U.S., he worked in radio there. Then we came back to my hometown, which is Manizales, and he also had some radio work there. He had this radio station there that he owned, and so I was always involved in like all that process, radio and stuff, and TV. He also did a lot of TV work. Then in Manizales, I just finished my high school and moved here to Bogota. Well, I studied some things before when I was like searching what I wanted to do really, and I did like 1 or 2 semesters of electronic engineering, and I found out that they were not going to teach me what I really wanted. That was like creating synthesizers and stuff like that. So I moved on to system engineering. So I thought maybe programming was my thing, and I find out like 2 or 3 semesters after that it wasn't my thing. I was like programming stuff I really didn't like. So they opened this new program here in Bogota. It was sound engineering. It was a new thing here. And I just got involved, and I, I, I got in the program, and 5 years later I graduated. Um, then I did a specialization in Berkeley. I did it online. Then I did some studies in Los Angeles, and parallel to that, I started working and I did my company. And one thing led to another. I met a teacher who she named me like the tutor of the class, and in the middle of that process, I started, listening to soundtracks and movies and stuff like that. And I found out about these guys that were studying film, and I asked them if I could do the music and the sound for their short film. And yeah, and that was like 14 years ago. And then I just did my company 12 years ago, almost 12 years ago. We just turned 11, like 3 months ago. And from that point on, I just, started buying gear. I rented a place. I found some people that would help me in the process. And then I got another person, and then I got another person. And, and that led me to, this point. I'm also a musician, so I had music in me from the very beginning. I made my first album when I was 14 years old in my hometown, made with a Sound Blaster Live and a Shure SM58. That was all we had. And this old PC with demo software. So we couldn't turn off the computer unless we had the song finished, because if I turned it off, I couldn't save. So
Right.
so yeah, I'm always been involved in the musical and the sound process. And later on, I discovered what I most liked about it was the sound design. So that was like my path, and that is what I most love to do until this point.
Well, that's an amazing journey. That's and congratulations on 11 years. That's quite a feat for especially a company as well, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I think, for me, 11 years is nothing, because I have the privilege, and I talk with people about this all the time. I have the privilege, and I think you too also, is about living from what you really love. Um, Besides Amniotica, I have another company, and I can't say it's been easy. There's been a lot of difficult moments and points in your career when you have no projects in your hands, or when you do have projects but people don't pay you for some reason. It's frustrating sometimes, but I always get up from bed thinking that I do what I love, and for me it's not working. For me it's like a hobby which I live from, and I love doing sound. I love recording. I also record music once in a while, so I love that. I have synth collection. I love synthesizers. Um, so I'm always into it, And one day I'm doing one project, and the other day I'm doing another project. So I can't complain. It's really cool, and I know a lot of people who may be even more into or have more talent than me in some things, and they're like sitting in a chair in an office, and you kind of look at that and feel sorry for it, because I feel a very privileged person to be working in this, and learning and talking to you. You're on the other side of the world, and whoever is listening to this hangout today is, it's really cool that I have the opportunity to talk to you, to talk to Mauricio, and that led, for example, of Mauricio and I have a friend in common who is Colombian. So sharing thoughts and sharing processes and everything, and making your work better, it's really, really nice.
Yeah, I think it's about time basically that we kind of got some sort of collective consciousness type of thing going. I mean, we have fantastic resources already, like JW Sound and the Facebook groups and things. But it's really nice to get that kind of personal kind of perspective, kind of all the way through without the kind of comments here and there, let's say, and replies and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's yeah, I think in terms of freelance work, I think it's definitely a lifestyle instead of a career. I find that especially for me, like being a freelancer, it's just so exciting. Essentially, not so much doing the same thing, but it's you're doing sound, right, or you're recording sound, or you're making sound. But the projects and the kind of context and the environment and the people are kind of always changing, and you've always got to kind of adapt. And it's a really interesting kind of game to be in a way.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. And I don't know why people that work on sound always like get along really well. It's something that doesn't happen with musicians. I don't know why. I have this magazine here in Colombia. It's an online magazine, and it only talks about Colombian music, Colombian composers and bands and stuff like that, concerts. And I created the project basically because I found that I don't know why musicians are always fighting, uh, and they have like this sort of envy towards everything. And it's a love-hate sensation in relationship. But that's something that doesn't happen with sound. I think I heard Mauricio yesterday talk a little bit about it, and he's like, sound people are always like friends. You don't even have to be their friends to know that if you find them in the street, or if you're in the same place or an event or something, you tell the same jokes, you laugh, that kind of stuff. So for me, the sound design and sound post-production world is very positive. It has a very positive vibe, and and you can get a lot of out of it. So it's very cool to meet people around the world that share your experiences, and are willing to, because um, every person I think you've interviewed and stuff are just open to talk about basically anything and share their secrets and their tips and stuff. And that's the magic of this. There's no like it's not a closed circle. It's really nice to be part of it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well because there's so many different elements to. I always kind of boil it down to like say so production sound or recording anything really. If you're
Mhm.
in the perfect scenario, as in like a completely clean environment and you have the best microphone and you've got the person playing and you're just pressing record and you know that you have to hit that level. That concept is fairly easy to grasp. If someone was in that situation, you could teach someone to record that sound in that perfect space relatively quickly. I would have thought. Hopefully, if they're kind of competent in getting around the levels and there kind of isn't much to do. But when it because of the nature of our work and how everything's so different, and essentially most of the things we're working on um, come out of people's heads from directors or writers or in a kind of film scenario. I think
Mhm.
having all those different elements, everyone realizes that they just kind of need to collect as much experience and kind of attitude and kind of relationships in kind of one weird facet. So there's no kind of um there's no kind of, I guess, yeah, uh jealousy or anything towards other mixers other than I can't wait until I have enough practice and I've met enough people to kind of prove myself to then get to that space. Because I think
Yeah.
more than ever there's kind of more work, especially in terms of like social content and advertising in general, but advertising that's blending into storytelling, which is
Mhm.
essentially what we're all doing. So I think there's kind of plenty of room, and I think the community is so strong, which is really interesting when you kind of first think about it, and everyone's not just kind of like half telling you things to kind of get you on the right track, but without sort of giving it away. But no, from the people that I've spoken to as well, it's just crazy, just like talking to people that work on the biggest films that everyone's seen, and also talks to people like yourself, and even people at my level or a couple of years younger, just about their experiences and how they're finding the industry and they're finding the technology, and just being able to kind of contrast and compare kind of lifelong careers with just starting out nowadays, and just trying to mesh all the best stuff into one pot, which is a kind of never ending task, because it's thankfully always changing, which is cool.
Yeah. And what I feel, from my perspective, is that people who work in sound are they work in sound because they're passionate about it. It's not like, I don't have a job, I'm going to search for something, and you casually find in the newspaper an ad that says we're looking for a sound recordist, and you go and you do the work. It's mostly people who work in this is people who have started from the very bottom and climbed up, and they love what they do. It's not like something you find. It's something you learn. It's something you learn because you want to learn, and something you participate in, and something that really motivates you to do your work and your job as as best as you can. And I think that's the main difference with other people who work in other areas. If uh, it's not essential to be, if you're like working in lighting, or maybe even like makeup, or I don't know, if you're a gaffer or something, not necessarily those people, I'm not saying all of them, but not necessarily all have a passion about it. I think for sound, it is for them, at least the people I've met that work on sound are like trying to achieve and give the best that they can for the production to be cool, because they know if they do a good job, they're going to call them again. And they know that if I help out these other dude who's beside me and ran out of batteries and I have some spare, I can give it to them, because I know that if it's his work is good and my work is good, the overall picture of the thing will be good. Because people understand that it's a process, and my work depends on the work of the other person also. So I think that's one of the biggest differences with like other areas and stuff, and it's really cool.
And I think it's important to remember that that's where the kind of art, I guess, the art kind of side comes in, from just being the kind of engineer, getting away from like the classic sound engineer is just that, the kind of essentially the man in the office, or the man who just runs the box, and there's no kind of creative flair. I think that's, it kind of goes in hand with it being everyone being so passionate, because it's kind of their own art, which is,
Yeah.
it's I kind of compare it to like when I look at like painters or artists who can like make a living from it, and you're kind of thinking, well, how do you do that? Why do you do that? How do you keep coming up with new stuff? How do you? It's the same kind of mentality of kind of self-improvement and experience, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea, basically. Well, if you want your word and your name out there, you have to try to see things in your own way. And I know a lot of technical persons, and if I have to relate to something technical, I know that person is going to help me, and the end result will be really cool. But I also know that there's this arty side. From all of this, especially sound and music, um, you have to try to see things in a different perspective. And it's not only that it sounds nice, because sounding ugly sometimes also can work. And I put the example on record producers or mixing engineers for music or for stuff. They try to see things in a different way, in different perspective, and approach everything in a different way. And then that's when the best art results turn out. And for me, that's like a rule every time. I essentially always try to, see the whole picture, and I try to talk a lot with the director, and I try to talk a lot with, people involved in production and stuff. But yeah, experimenting in the studio and experimenting with microphones and with responses and stuff are essential. Someday somebody's going to call you for, listening to this you did and saying that is, out of the box, or it's really it sounds new to me. And I think that's the point about all of this, like creating your own color and stuff. Obviously there's scenarios where you can't propose a lot, I assume, but it's always important to have that in mind.
Yeah, I think this is a kind of perfect end to what will hopefully be just one of many sound chats with you. Just because it's been going an hour now, and I'm trying to always limit them to as close to kind of an hour as I can. It's just so I can have more kind of chats in the future. But I guess a good kind of final way to always end these is just kind of asking for I guess tips. But I'm trying to think, because you kind of specialize in so many different areas. Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe a tip, or maybe explain just how you kind of keep or have kept your kind of motivation through your career. Because what I found, for instance, is I'm like 5 years into sound recording now, and some things have now become a bit routine in terms of maybe just getting. I mean, I work with some of the same people, but there's that period of you've kind of fought through, and now you can like live and all that good stuff from what you love. But do you have any tips on just trying to keep that creativity or that kind of drive going, especially for the last 15 years?
My tip would be, I try to do this all the time, and as you say, sometimes some projects, it becomes routine. When you're doing a opera, for example, you're like 70 or 60 episodes in, and you're doing the same thing every day. What I try to do is, for me, obviously I make a living from this, but for me, money involved in some projects are not as important as I really think, or my wife thinks. But I still do works for free. I still invent projects of my own. I still experiment. Sometimes here in the studio, if we have the moment or the time, we just take the day off and do whatever we haven't had the opportunity to do in several days, months, or even a year. We're always trying to invent things and try to pull out something from it. What really motivates me, as I told you before, is I try to do different projects every day. So one day I'm mixing a song, I'm mixing a rock or metal song, and the other day I'm mixing a short film. The other day I'm helping somebody out here recording some Foley. The next day I'm recording ambiences in the river. The next day I'm experimenting, maybe recording some drums. We did that last week. Here in the house, I live here, and here's the studio also. It's separated, one part of the house is the studio, and the other part of the house is my house. And I have this big living room, and the floor is out of stone, and the walls are also stone, and it's like 8 meters tall. So one day we just had the idea. We were like having lunch or something, and let's record drums here and see how it sounds. And we did that last week, and it was really cool. I didn't even know I had such a cool live room in my house, and I didn't even know. The next day we just tear apart the studio and, you know, record some sound design with moving speakers. The next day, maybe someone calls me and says, hey, I have this short film. I don't have money because I'm, you know, doing it all by myself. So I invite him to my house. He comes and shows me the short film. And it's those kind of projects you just see, and you know, like your mouth is wide open because it's really nice and it's something you've always wanted to do. So I have no problem saying, okay, there's no money involved. Let's do it. And, you know, I don't know why, because sometimes the best projects I've worked on, I haven't really received money for them, but they're the projects that have won the most prizes, that have given me the most recognition. And those people become so successful with their work that they do a second project and they call me, and now they pay me, and they do a third project and then they pay me. You know, it's, for me, as I said, money is not important, but when those kind of projects come to my house or to my studio, you know, it's something I just can't say no. And my wife works with me. She's our producer, and she's always telling me, we don't have time to do it. We can't do it. We have to, you know, we have bills to pay and whatever. But for me, as I told you, this is my passion. I love doing this, and helping out somebody who has also some, is also imagining in a world, you know, making film and stuff. For me to have the opportunity to help that person out is really nice. And I've met some really, really nice people which I've done favors to, and they just give it back, you know. And that's really important for me, like meeting those people and knowing that they have certain sensibility towards art and towards film, and learning about it. And I don't know, that would be my tip. Always keep your mind busy. When you have projects like the ones you've mentioned, where, you know, it becomes routine, you always have the opportunity to invent something, or, you know, create a project. Let's do this, let's do that. For example, you're doing this fabulous work with sound chats, and, you know, I'm gonna share it afterwards. And certainly a lot of friends of mine who work on sound are going to be really interested in hearing these, you know, these people you had the great opportunity to interview. And I've seen some, you know, like big names there, and for me it's also an honor to be in your program talking about, you know, obviously smaller projects, because there's not a lot happening in Colombia. There's a lot of really good films and a lot of really good people who work on sound, but obviously we're not, you know, we're not Hollywood. So, you know, listening to people talking about how they did Batman or Hulk or whatever, for me it's a great experience. And that's the reason why I really decided to write to you.
Well, yeah, I think it's important as well just to get all of those perspectives, because I know that so many people that have watched the chats and have kind of got in touch, anything from their first couple of years into their career to kind of they're like 40 years in, or like 50 years into their kind of career. And I think just having that span of, I think everyone has something to kind of give in terms of their experience at their moment right now. For instance, yourself as just building a company, getting a group of people together, and kind of being able to make systems and to make your own kind of processes, and really kind of, I guess, deliver the value in terms of the Colombian market, and how that's naturally going to rise as well as obviously video and everything reaches all corners of the globe in terms of just a medium of the medium of communication.
Yeah.
And even in music, and even in the games work, which unfortunately we haven't had time to touch on this time, but all of this stuff is, it just gives you a new unique perspective, because even though we're all going through the same kind of, well, we're not going through the same path, but we're going through the same kind of category of sound recordists or sound designers or sound mixers. And I think it's just really important. The more perspectives you have, and the more you can see, oh, well, it's not necessarily about following one person either. That's the thing. So I could like interview all these people and then just make up my own mind about everyone, and just kind of say, well, I've spoken to everyone, and generally this is what you should do. But until you've got down to like the individual kind of, I guess, case studies, for lack of a better word, and just seeing what people can do, and how they've done it, and what choices they've made, and what success they're having. It just really shows you how many different ways you can do it. And the main thing is, or the main takeaway, I guess, each time is just to keep doing it. And that is the big kind of statement that that comes out from all these chats, which is really cool. Just passion, attitude, and just keep doing it. Because the only ones that are not doing it don't want to, essentially, anymore. So
they're missing it.
Exactly. So thank you very much, Alejandro. For everyone who's been watching, thank you very much as well. This will, of course, be a video as well. And unfortunately, we had a little slight problems with audio, so we had to knock off the visual side of things for a while. But I hope you've enjoyed it, and there will be kind of a written transcript of everything as well, and an audio download and all sorts of stuff that will be coming along, so you can watch this, listen to this, read this, and it'll be on all the usual suspects of Facebook and social media. So thank you very much, Alejandro. I will sign off just the video part of this, and then we can have a little chat afterwards. But I will leave you to say the final goodbye to everyone.
Okay, no, first of all, thanks for inviting me. I had a blast of a time. I think we could have done this for about 2 or 3 hours. There's a lot to talk about. And I think you have, great experiences written down and in your head that you can also share with me, because for me, this is like a two-way thing. I'm talking about what I do and what we do here in Colombia and in my studio, but I'm also interested in, learning what everybody's doing, and why not maybe creating in the future something from all of us. We could do this collective thing. Maybe one day I can give you some ideas. Maybe you have others. I don't know. Maybe something really cool can come out of this. Again, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for the people who were connected, and also to the people who will listen or view this afterwards. And come to Colombia. If you want to come to Colombia, I'll be really, really happy, and I can show you around and stuff, and we can get to meet and talk a little bit about sound.
Fantastic. So as ever, people, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.